Minority Leader, Senator Frank Trilon, the Chairman of the Committee on Public Order, Senator Bato de la Rosa, the Chairman of the Committee on Local Government and Housing is Senator Francis Tolentino, is also with us, and the Majority Leader, Mig Subiri, is also with us. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Secretary of the Department, Secretary Minardo Guevara, also Yusek Mark Perete, Yusek Juliana Sunga, ASEC Adonis Sulit, ASEC Margaret Castillo Padilla, Prosecutor General Malcontento, Attorney Dante Gueran of the NBI, Administrator Co, Commissioner Morente of the BI, DEPCOM Javier, DEPCOM Alegre, Solgen Calida of the OSG, GCC Head Elpidio Vega, Prosecutor ASEC Melegrito, OIC Director Tupas, Commissioner Agbayani, Malcontento, we acknowledged him earlier. What is this? Di ko mabasa. Si Chair Raymond Seak of the PCGG and the other officials of the DOJ. Magandang hapon po. Anyone from the Senate panel who wants to say anything before we start? If not, we'll allow the Secretary to proceed. Sir, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Senator Angara, Senator Dulon, Senator Subiri, Senator General Bato. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Senator Tolentino. Just to expedite the proceedings, Senator Angara, may I turn over the floor to my Undersecretary for Finance, Undersecretary Leanne Sunga, so that we can proceed accordingly.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am Lea. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, honorable senators. May I present the budget of the Department of Justice? No? For this slide, we're presenting the total FY 2020 program budget of the DOJ, including its constituent and attached agencies, amounting to 21.7 billion. As you may note, this is only 0.53% or half of 1% of the total national budget for FY 2020 of 4.1 trillion. This slide shows the budget of the DOJ, Office of the Secretary, including its attached agencies. No? Yung nabanggit na po yung aming mga attached agencies include the Bureau of Corrections, the Bureau of Immigration, Land Registration Authority, the National Bureau of Investigation, Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, Office of the Solicitor General, Parole and Probation Administration, Presidential Commission on Good Government, and Public Attorney's Office. For FY 2020, the department-wide budget proposal submitted amounts to 36.7 billion. The total budget recommended in the FY 2020 National Expenditure Program is 21.7 billion. This is 0.68% higher than the FY 2019 budget of the 21.6 billion. Yes, sir. Okay. This slide shows our FY 2020 budget by expense classification. So by PS, MOE, and capital outlay. On the overall, about 76.88% of the total budget is for PS, or personnel services. Then 20.75% for MOE, and only 2.37% for capital outlay. With the permission of the honorable members of the committee, please allow me to present the Doj Austech budget in the next several slides. So for FY 2020, the Doj Austech, or the Office of the Secretary, is provided with a budget of 6.7 billion. This is 3.45% lower than the 7 billion budget in 2019. About 88.30% of the Doj Austech budget allocation for FY 2020 is for personnel services. Then 10.51% for MOE and only 1.19% for capital outlays. For our law enforcement program, since we have three major programs, the law enforcement program, the program for corrections, and the legal services. Now, for our law enforcement program, the prosecution services budget for the National Prosecution Service increased by 3.38%. Witness protection program decreased by 6.17%. Interagency Council Against Trafficking decreased by 33.06%, and other component programs and activities increased by an average of 17.99%. On the overall, our FY 2020 law enforcement budget will be 2.50% higher than our FY 2019 appropriations. Our law enforcement program performance indicators relate to the disposition rate of criminal complaints handled by the National Prosecution Service, the percentage of applications for witness coverage acted upon by the WPP or the Witness Protection Program, and the rate of investigations completed by our special units. For our corrections program, the Board of Pardons and Parole grants parole to qualified offenders and recommends to the Office of the President the grant of pardon, executive clemency. The Victims Compensation Services provides monetary compensation for victims of violent crimes and unjust imprisonment through the Board of Claims. In terms of performance, the indicators focus on pardons and parole services and actions on claims for victims' compensation. On legal services, the DOJ legal staff renders various legal services in relation to the function of the Justice Secretary as Attorney General, including legal opinions, resolution of citizenship cases, grant of special non-immigrant visas, legislative position papers, and legal studies, among others. The Office for Alternative Dispute Resolution is mandated by RA 9285 to promote, develop, and expand the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the private and public sectors. DOJ lawyers also participate in the negotiation of economic agreements within the country and abroad, and its implementation to ensure consistency with our legal interests and framework. For FY 2020, the DOJ Office of the Secretary, we have 4 locally funded projects. No? One is the construction of 6-story building for DOJ NPS Region 11, implementation of AO number 35 Series 2012, creating the Interagency Committee on Extralegal Killings, Enforced Disappearances, Torture, and other grave violations of right to life, liberty, and security of persons. Then we have also the continuing capacity building of our lawyers for participation in government trade and investment negotiations, and ongoing National Justice Information System project. For our attached and constituent agencies, I'll start with the National Bureau of Investigation. The FY 2020 recommended budget for our law enforcement agency amounts to 1.7 billion, which is 4.86 lower than the 1.8 billion in FY 2019. For the said FY 2020 budget, NBI will be able to process more than 7 million applications for clearance, of which at least 98% will be processed within 10 minutes from receipt. NBI will also be able to act on and conduct investigation in at least 57,000 cases. For the Bureau of Immigration, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 1.5 billion, which is 21.62% higher than the 1.3 billion in 2019. Given this budget, the BI estimates to process 99% of entries and exits within 45 seconds upon primary inspection. The agency will also process 94.2% immigration transactions within 6 days from filing to implementation, and dispose 93.4% of intelligence cases within 60 days. For the Bureau of Corrections, Bucor, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 4.14 billion, which is 1.08% higher than the 4.10 billion in FY 2019. For the said budget, Bucor will ensure the 92% participation rate of inmates in its rehabilitation programs and will maintain an average of 47,010 inmates within FY 2020. For the Parole and Probation Administration, or PPA, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 936.2 million, which is about 1.67% higher than the 920.8 million in FY 2019. The said amount includes implementation of the single carpeta or inmate record system in the agency as part of the National Justice Information System project. With this FY 2020 budget, PPA will ensure that 97% of clients will be compliant to their terms of their probation and or parole conditions, and that 95% will participate in its rehabilitation programs. For the Public Attorney's Office, PAO, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 4.2 billion, which is 2.34% higher than the 4.1 billion in FY 2019. Given the recommended budget, PAO will be able to acquire 81.34% favorable dispositions on its cases, including appealed cases, and will ensure that all requests for non-judicial services will be acted upon within 2 hours. For the Office of the Solicitor General, OSG, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 1.041 billion, which is 4.01% higher than the 1.001 billion in FY 2019. The OSG aims at least 98% of all cases acted upon in FY 2020 are within 30 days. For resolution of petitions for naturalization, the agency intends to resolve all by the end of the year. For the Office of the Government Corporate Council, OGCC, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 175.1 million. This is 17.55% lower than the 212.3 million in FY 2019. Given the said FY 2020 budget, the OGCC will ensure that 100% of all court pleadings will be filed within the prescribed period. It will also ensure that 100% of legal opinions will be rendered within the prescribed period. For the Land Registration Authority, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 1.03 billion, which is 3.44% higher than the 999.2 million in FY 2019.
We just like to acknowledge the presence of one of the committee vice chairs, Senator Bongo, Vice Chair Bongo.
The LRA will be able to provide land registration services and will ensure that at least 92.44% of titles will be issued and 93.82% of deeds annotated 20 days after the submission of complete documents. And for the Presidential Commission on Good Government, PCGG, the FY 2020 recommended budget amounts to 141.6 million, which is 6.56% higher than the 132.9 million in FY 2019. The PCGG targets at least 526 million of assets will be submitted to the Privatization Council for disposition. And lastly, upon the directive of the honorable senators during the last hearing, during the last committee hearing, okay, for the Bureau of Corrections, we included the amount of 478 million point 674 for enhanced security solution for the Bureau of Corrections. This is just the estimated amount. And the rest are for presenting the, actually these are the items that were not considered in the FY 2020 NEP, and we're humbly requesting the honorable senators to allow us to provide this budget, because this is crucial to our day-to-day operations. That's all, Your Honors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusek Lea. We'll follow the rule of order of arrival. The first one here was the Minority Leader, Senator Drilon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First, on general questions. The way the Department of Justice is structured today, is it a correct impression that all the agencies of the department, except the National Prosecution Service, are simply attached agencies? Is that a correct impression? It is only with the National Prosecution Service that you have direct control and supervision. In the rest of the agencies, the Secretary of Justice would simply have administrative supervision. The agency would be attached to this Office of the Secretary or the Department of Justice for policy and program coordination. And my understanding is that because of the setup, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Secretary, I've been out of the department obviously for quite some time, because of the relationship of being only having administrative supervision, your heads of office will see you only during budget time and submit their budget to you for inclusion in the DOJ budget. Is that a correct impression, or can you give us your view on this?
Thank you, Senator Drilon. Except for the Bureau of Immigration, which remains to be a constituent agency under the Department of Justice, meaning we continue to exercise control and supervision. All the other attached agencies are attached to us merely for administrative purposes or for policy and program coordination.
Including the National Prosecution Service?
Of course, the National Prosecution Service is the core
Yes.
of the Department of
Akala ko
Justice.
pati yan nawala
Hindi
na
naman
sa'yo.
po. It's not an attached agency. It's the very core of the
Yes.
Department of Justice,
Yes.
together with our functions as the Office of the
Yes.
Attorney General.
Therefore, only the Bureau of Immigration as a constituent unit would be under the control and supervision of the Secretary of Justice, apart from the National Prosecution Service, which would be the principal body under the department, under the Secretary. In fact, only the National Prosecution Service and the Bucor would be under your control and supervision, and all the others would be attached to the Office of the Secretary for policy and program coordination.
Not the Bucor, sir.
Not
The Bureau
I'm
of
sorry,
Immigration.
The Bureau of Immigration. I'm sorry,
That's
correct
correct,
myself.
Senator.
The
Yes.
Bureau of Immigration.
And I would like to add also that maybe it's not very accurate to say that we only see the heads of the other attached agencies only during
I'm
events
exaggerating.
like that.
I'm exaggerating.
Yes, because we
but
meet
it's-
with them occasionally.
Right. You speak with them occasionally. Is that correct? No. Are you satisfied with that setup? Because you are the head of the department, and you have no control and supervision over every office except two. You have, for example, and I'm not saying that I am not blaming anyone. I'm just trying to describe your situation in the Department of Justice. The Bureau of the OGCC would have its own mandate and would carry out its functions independent of your office, Public Attorney's Office, OSG, NBI, what else? LRA, Parole and Probation, PCGG, and all of this, you have practically, you are not practically, you have no control and supervision.
Well, as I said earlier, Senator, it's basically administrative supervision and or programs and policy coordination.
You know,
yeah,
program and policy coordination is the most abused phrase
Right,
in the bureaucracy, because it means nothing, right?
Practically speaking, Senator Drilon, that is a correct observation. More or less, these attached agencies exercise a lot of autonomy in terms of their operations.
Do you find that situation ideal for purposes of running your department?
Well, if I'm just talking about the department itself, we're self-sufficient insofar as our core functions are concerned. But some of these agencies have essential excuse me, connection with the dispensation of criminal justice. And much as we would like to have additional, in other words, not merely administrative supervision, but a certain degree of control, not necessarily full control, because the department may not be properly equipped to handle all of these attached agencies in terms of manpower and resources. But we would rather have something like a kind of a degree of control which lies somewhere between full control and mere administrative supervision. So that would probably entail, in my imagination, Senator Drilon, control in certain aspects of their operation, not in every aspect of their operational activity, but maybe with respect to some of their operational activities.
Would you be able to spread into the record the shortcomings or the disadvantages in this kind of an organizational structure where you have totally no control over all of your agencies except the Bureau of Immigration and the National Prosecution Service?
The best example is what happened to the Bureau of Corrections, Senator Drilon.
Okay, yes, that's a good example. Notwithstanding your department order number 953, releases were made without your concurrence.
The problem with that, Senator Drilon, is that it's a mere department order.
I know.
It's not even written in the law,
Yes.
and therefore, this may be disregarded on the ground that it's not even required. As far as the law is concerned, it's the Bucor chief who exercises control over the agency, and DOJ merely exercises oversight functions or administrative supervision. So if that kind of power on the part of the Secretary of Justice to approve releases of those convicted of crimes where the penalty imposed is reclusion perpetua or life imprisonment, if that were built into the law itself, then that would be a form of control in certain aspects of the operations of the Bucor.
Yes, but unless that department order number 953 is revoked, it remains an order from the Secretary of Justice, who, by the way, Mr. Secretary, you are aware that you act as the principal law agency of government and the legal counsel representative thereof of the state. How is this being operationalized? My impression is that this is a dead letter law, given your structure today,
Are we referring,
to
Senator,
the administrative code. Because if I recall the administrative code correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are the principal law agency, and in fact, your opinion is binding on the entire bureaucracy. When you render an opinion as Secretary of Justice, that is binding on the entire bureaucracy, you being the principal law agency of the government. Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement, Senator Drilon, insofar as the functions of the DOJ, as the Office of the Attorney General are
Yes.
concerned.
In other words, the moment you render an opinion, that is the law insofar as the executive branch is concerned.
That is correct, Senator.
How is that being implemented today, given the fact that you have no supervision and control over your department itself? How can we now look at the Department of Justice as being the principal law agency whose opinions are binding on the entire bureaucracy when you have no control of your own bureaucracy? How do you reconcile that role of yours with the organizational setup of your department?
Well, even those agencies attached to the Department of Justice, whenever they require rendition of legal opinion on the part of the DOJ, are bound by our own opinions. So they're not excluded from any other agency of the government which may need a legal opinion from the Department of Justice.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, when the OGCC renders an opinion to a GOCC, that is binding on the GOCC. Is that correct?
That is correct,
So
Senator.
there you are. It only proves that you do not have that kind of authority insofar as legal opinion is concerned.
We're not too sure, Senator, about the power of review by the Department of Justice regarding certain opinions rendered by the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. Maybe Justice Vega here
yes.
of the OGCC can enlighten us further on the relation between opinions rendered by the OGCC and those by the DOJ, which I believe pertains really more to the national government agencies, whereas the OGCC opinions pertain to government corporations.
Go ahead, Justice Vega.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the honorable senators. With regards to that question, we do render opinions with regards to the issues raised by government-owned and controlled corporation. And sometimes when they are not in consonance with what they want, they would really ask the DOJ for some confirmatory opinions in the guise of a confirmatory opinions.
So
And
nagpo-forum
that is
shopping
the-
pa. Huh? If they are not
yeah.
happy with your opinion, they seek the opinion of the
They
Department.
usually do that, but seldom do I see corporations going to the DOJ. They would rather accept our opinions.
Okay, yeah.
But there are some corporations who would ask for a confirmatory receipt.
Yeah, so in any case, we're just talking here about the parameters of the power, that how it is actually applied is something else. I assume the Office of the Solicitor General would have the same power insofar as opinions on cases being handled by the OSG. Is that correct, Solicitor General Calida? You have superior power of rendering an opinion insofar as cases that you handle are concerned.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I am asking all these questions because I'm really bothered by the setup that you have. And you have expressed it yourself. You certainly would be more effective if there's a certain degree of control, not in every aspect, but at least in certain critical aspect of your operation. We would appreciate receiving a proposed redefinition of the power of the solicitor of the Department of Justice. Would that be in order, or you are embarrassed to do that?
We'll be happy to do that,
Okay.
Senator Dulon.
Yes, of course.
Of course, that will also entail requesting additional resources for the Department of Justice itself.
I have no problems with that, asking for additional funds. And talking about that, how much is your request for the equipment in the Bucor, which we discussed during the committee hearing?
Sir, it's around 400 for It's 478,674,000.
478.6
million, sir.
million.
Yes, sir.
And is that based on any quotation of an equipment or what?
Yes,
How,
sir.
how was that figure arrived at?
Okay. Sir, this is based on the details on enhanced security solution, for example, the facial recognition and video analytics software amounting to 300 million. Then we have the CCTV surveillance system, access control system, communications equipment, body security. So we also include maintenance or support operations for 3 years, like technical support, encoders. So we tried to estimate the
Falls
budget
under the MOOE,
more on the capital outlay, sir.
capital outlay
Yes,
pa rin.
sir.
Okay. Sige. So you're saying that this is based on quotations or prices that you are that you have access to. 478.6
Estimates
million.
only, sir. Yes,
Huh?
sir. Estimates
Estimate.
given by our MIS, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a few other questions, but I do not want to monopolize. Let's give others a chance, and then I'll just come back later on after the other colleagues have asked the question.
Thank you. That's very gracious of you, Minority Leader Drilon. Next to ask questions is Senator Tolentino, but I think Senator Bongo wishes to make a brief manifestation. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Wala na po akong question since maraming nauna sa akin. Paalala ko lang, kasama ba dyan yung sa budget ng Bucor, yung purchase ng mga granada? Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. To my fellow senators and everyone in attendance, good afternoon. The Department of Justice plays several crucial roles in the bureaucracy. Aside from prosecuting offenders, it also administers, manages our correctional facilities. To serve its purpose, it has to be firm, steadfast, and efficient, and I fully commit my support to the measures and initiatives of Secretary Guevara towards a corruption-free DOJ. At this point, allow me to go straight to the Bureau of Corrections, the Bucor. Recently, the country has been reeling from news of the horrors happening inside our correctional facilities. It seems that corruption has been ingrained in the system, that it has ways of turning good people and intention to heartless pursuits of selfish desires. Lahat na lang bawal at ayaw natin dito sa labas ay nandun na sa loob ng bilibid. Illegal drugs, corruption, criminality. I reiterate my call to the DOJ and to the National Prosecution Service. Let us do our sworn duties. Kung may kailangan imbestigahan natin. Kung may kailangan kasuhan natin. Kung may kailangan makulong, ipakulong natin. At kung kailangan may media, dapat managot ang dapat managot. This has to stop, and I have stated multiple times before, corruption and criminality has no place in this administration. I join the calls of my fellow senators to overhaul and revamp the Bureau of Corrections, and we will start by making good our commitment to the DOJ to provide with enough funds to acquire high-tech equipment for the Bucor and to construct a separate penal facility for convicts of heinous crimes. These are small steps, but they are steps in the right direction. And also, yung sa hospital, kindly include the poison. Anyway, meron po akong papadalang liham lang po sa inyo, Secretary Guevara. Sumusulat po ako ngayon sa inyong tanggapan upang humingi ng inyong tulong at konsiderasyon. Umaapila po ako sa inyo sa ngalan ng mga presong kasalukuyang nakakulong sa New Bilibid Prison na matanda na at may karamdaman. Personal ko pong nasaksihan ang kanilang kalagayan at pagdurusa. Hiling ko po sana palayain na sa alinsunod sa ating saligang batas upang kahit man lang sa natitira nilang araw dito sa mundong ito ay makasama nila ang kanilang mahal sa buhay. Maraming salamat po. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Very much, Vice Chair Go. Senator Francis?
Just a few questions directed towards the Land Registration Authority. It just came from presided over a committee hearing of the Committee on Housing. Administrator, you sent a representative. If you recall, during the last SONA of the President, he mentioned LRA as one of the top 5 government agencies that need to drastically improve the efficiency of their services based on the number of public complaints received by Malacanang. Siguro update lang yung committee regarding this. Ano ba yung nangyari? Kasi nung 2017, you recorded a backlog of 468,436 pending requests na hindi nagalaw. So, do you have any update concerning this? Then I'll go into housing.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and the Honorable Chairman and members of this committee. Actually, Your Honor, we have a list of changes in our processes, Your Honor. Actually, we submitted already.
Can you provide this committee a copy of that? O
Yes,
baka
Your
ikaw
Honor.
lang may kopya?
Actually, we submitted it to Senator Angara, Your Honor.
Yun yung after the meeting, after
Yes, Your
the, sige, we'll furnish, we'll give a copy
But my
to-
other, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chair,
go ahead.
Well,
my
well,
other
I-
question refers to the SONA instructions of the President.
We were called upon by the ARTA at the Malacanang, Your Honor. And we already explained there the changes that we have instituted as a response to that. Actually,
That includes what? Upgrading your computer software?
we already have, Your Honor. Actually, we have the list here, Your Honor, if I may have time to.
You can read a few of them.
Just
Yes,
the
Your Honor.
Just
highlights.
because yung meeting natin, informal yun, presentation lang yun.
Yes, Your Honor.
Walang record sa Congress yun. This one is recorded. So, yung
Yes, Your
reforms nyo will be part of the public record.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. We have here the transaction preview notice. The TPN allows LRA clients to review the information that will go into the title for correctness and completeness, which is expected to reduce the typographical errors and overall processing time. Because in the previous policy of the LRA, the transactions would be exclusively being conducted by our personnel at the field. We instituted a policy wherein they will have a copy so that the transacting public may have the chance to correct the entries. Otherwise, because if they will not be given the chance to correct the entries, we have a peculiar law that if it would be approved by the RD, any correction or amendment to the title would require a litigation in court. That
Mr.
is also
Chair,
one of the
I
sources
think
of the
what
complaints.
the administrator is saying is that after a period of more than 60 days. When was SONA?
July 22, Your Honor.
July 22. And anong araw na ngayon? September 23.
September
August,
23.
September. After a period of 60 days,
Yes, Your
you
Honor.
were able to institutionalize reforms within LRA? 60
We have
days?
we have added. We already have some reforms, Your Honor, that were underway. This was what I was reading is it started on 2018, Your Honor. Because I have the list here, Your Honor.
Siguro provide us a copy. Give me a copy. And
Yes,
then-
Your Honor.
And then my second question will segue to sa housing. It has been reported in the field that one of the biggest blockade insofar as processing of housing permits, processing of license to sales, because the housing sector, it has been validated. We are in a backlog of more than 6.5, 6.7 million housing units, and we have to play catch up. one of the choke points, so to speak, because I used to have some knowledge as regards traffic management. Choke point probably is the right buzzword, is the LRA. They've been saying that in terms of land conversion, titling, subtitling, it's been the LRA that has been providing the necessary bureaucratic red tape, so to speak. Any comment on that, Administrator? Go ahead, go ahead.
If I may be permitted, Your Honor, I'm the Deputy Administrator of LRA for Administration and Finance. Your Honor, for the information of the good senator, before a transaction finally reach the RD level, wherein the generation of the title, the registration of any instrument is done, there are a lot of dependencies. Insofar as NHA transactions are concerned, we have to mention that prior to that stage where these transactions are finally entered in the RD level, there are a lot of dependencies. One, insofar as the rehabilitation, relocation, settlement are concerned, the matter of acquisition, of course, is a very critical stage. Number two, you have to remember that NHA, because of the need to acquire not so costly land area, the contractors would tend to purchase agricultural land. And the conversion, the exemption of agricultural to non...
I get what you're saying,
Yes,
Deputy
Your Honor, it would
Administrator.
take time.
You have existing policies, existing rules that you have to follow. So as a policy direction, and I'm addressing Secretary Guevara, perhaps we should have a more integrated approach in this. That policy direction should not be regarded in isolation. We have to look at other agencies providing basic services. Housing, for instance. Without a house, without a house, you're now talking of health issues, social issues, peace and order issues. So there has got to be a point when all policies would have to be integrated such that the delivery of basic services would be achieved. In this case, the complaints that have reached this representation is that the so-called red tape has prevented and led to the escalation of cost because of the slow release of the necessary papers, titles, etc., and has contributed to the backlog, housing backlog I mentioned a while ago. So I refer back to the statement of the President during the SONA that there has to be a drastic improvement in the efficiency of your service. So by next year or 2021, your LARES contract will expire, right? It will terminate.
Your Honor, the BO contract between LRA and the service provider would have to expire by stages, Your Honor. By stages. In other words, through the first stage would have to expire 2020, then the next stage would have to expire, I think, 2023, until on the last stage would have to expire, I think, 2024. So, Your Honor, our BO contract with service providers have several stages, Your Honor. So, it is not totally correct that the entire contract would expire next year.
Hand in hand with the computerization which started, I think, prior to the term of Secretary Guevara, you should likewise look at your personnel component. Apparently, COA reports would show that only 1/3 of your positions are currently filled up. So while we agree that automation would provide a semblance of efficiency, but the records will show, even the President expresses dismay regarding your efficiency. I think the matter of COA report should likewise be achieved. Dapat punuin nyo yung pwesto nyo. Di ba? 1/3 lang ang na-fill up ninyo. Tama ba yon?
May I answer that question yun? Actually, we have already increased the appointment in terms of volume, Your Honor. Because when I assume the average appointments of regular employees is around 68, Your Honor, and we have increased it to, ano ba to? Hindi ko maintindihan itong figure na to. But we have the data, Your Honor, that we all. 3%. Yes, Your Honor.
Of that data. And then I refer you for the last item to that COA item wherein it was stated that the government lost 12.2 million due to weak control on collections of the Register of Deeds. Is there any remedial action done concerning this? That was 2018.
Are you referring to the reduction of the income, Your Honor?
Yes.
Are you referring to any
Yes.
leakage? I would have to disagree with that, Your Honor, because
So
if-
you have to answer COA. Because it's not my statement. I called it from the COA report.
Yes, Your Honor. As a matter of fact, we have already filed our comment to COA, Your Honor. There are so many meetings that was held between COA and LRA insofar as the matter of system audit, Your Honor, is concerned. Because the
So
bottom
these
line,
na-rectify na lahat ito.
yes, Your Honor,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you for your candid answers, Administrator, Deputy Administrator. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Thank you,
Thank
Senator
you.
Tolentino. On a related matter,
you, Your Honor.
Administrator, how many types of transactions are processed by the LRA? Ilang klaseng transaction ba yan?
Or there are several types of transaction
May isang daan? May
in the
isang daan?
RD.
May ilan kaya?
You are
Ah.
talking about registered land transaction,
Yeah,
certified true copy transaction,
okay,
unregistered land transaction, chattel mortgage transaction.
okay.
In these transactions, Your Honor, there are transactions. For example,
Subcategories,
registered tra-
annotation,
yes,
things like
in
that.
a
Okay,
registered
yeah.
land transaction,
Okay.
there would be sale, assignment,
sige.
extrajudicial
Yeah, okay.
settlement, and
So,
a host of
would
other.
you say at least 100, maybe? 100 different transactions?
Possibly, Your Honor, because
Where would they fall under the ease of doing business law? Would they be complex transactions or simple transactions?
Your Honor, we are
Yeah.
trying to delineate transactions as simple transaction and complicated transaction, Your Honor. Because if we are talking of a simple, straightforward transaction, like
Alin yung simple sa inyo?
a straightforward sale transaction, a
oo.
sale, straightforward real estate. But when we are now talking with, let's say, for example, a
Unahin lang
link
natin,
transaction,
klaruhin lang natin, Administrator, ano yung simple? Para clear.
a sale transaction,
ano
Your
yung
Honor, would be a
sale?
classic example.
Okay, i-register yung sale.
Yes.
Okay, ano pa?
Real estate transaction, Your Honor, real
Okay.
estate mortgage transaction.
Okay,
Assignment, a simple transfer of ownership transaction.
okay.
But sometimes the registries of deeds would encounter link transaction, like a classic example would be a deed of assignment with pag-ibig transaction would be a deed of absolute sale with assignment, with real estate mortgage, and then meron pang reconveyance, and this is lumped in one transaction, Your Honor. So, our system, artificial intelligence it may be, cannot cope up with this kind of transaction. That's why we really have our computer providers would really have to study and come up with a seamless and efficient transaction based on the computer system, Your Honor.
Well, anyway, pursuant to pursuing Senator Tolentino's point, sana ma-reduce na natin yung yung processing times because there's a law already on that eh. Sana maging compliant ho tayo doon, Administrator.
We will.
Yeah, thank
we
you.
will, we will.
Senator De La Rosa is next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gusto ko lang malaman, sir, kung yung capital outlay nyo for Bucor, 437, anong pupuntahan yan?
Sir, this includes security equipment. Like,
Equipment.
yes, sir.
If I may suggest, ako kung mahabol pa ba or paano paraan, sir, nakita ko dyan, kahit na anong high-tech gagawin natin doon, kung hindi mabawasan yung human intervention, lalo na yung coming from the outsiders, kulang pa rin. Ako, if I may suggest, sana, meron akong sinorbi dyan noon na lugar wherein, kasi palagi nating problema dyan is, saan ka makakita ng maximum security compound na dinadaanan ng mga civilian yung perimeter, yung gilid. Kaya palagi, pag nagpapatrolya yung gwardya sa umaga, palaging may mapapulot na cellphone, sigarilyo, sometimes droga, doon sa loob ng perimeter fence. Kasi yung mga gago nagtatapon ng lagay lang sa medyas yung kontrabando. Ganun lang yung medyas, tsok, pagtapon doon, pasok na sa loob. So, sabi ko nga sa gwardiya, kung pwede lang, lalo na yung mga sap sa taas, pag may makita kayo dyan, naglalakad ng mga tao sa baba, barilin ninyo para wala na makatapon ng kontrabando dyan. So sana, ganitong, ako kung paano natin ihabol ito, gumawa sana kayo ng program of work, yung kalsada, na yung nakatira doon sa housing doon, sa NHA, hindi na dadaan dyan sa maximum security compound. Meron akong sinurbi doon na kalsada, pero kailangan tayong i-build yun kasi kung wala yung kalsada yun, wala kayong magawa, kundi dadaan talaga yan dyan, yung mga tao na yan. From the housing to poblasyon Muntinlupa, kailangan sila mabigyan ng kalsada para hindi sila makadaan dyan sa gilid ng maximum security compound. So kung magawa natin yan, kuha na sila, off-limits na sila doon, kung sino yung lalapit doon sa gilid, pwedeng paputukan. Huwag lang baril na dito, sir. Paputukan lang para tatakbo. So gano'n na ako kung sana makagawa kayo ng request. Kalsada mo lang yun. Samantalang ang daming kalsada dyan na kung tutusin, 10 bisis na siniminto. Bakit yung sa atin dyan sa Bucor, hindi natin magawa yan? Gawin natin. Maliit lang yun, sir. Mga siguro 1 kilometer lang o 2 kilometers. Connecting doon sa yung housing papunta doon sa poblasyon without using the perimeter route ng maximum security compound. Yun lang, sir. Saka salamat yan, ang laki. 437, at least nabigyan nyo ng pansin ng Bucor from the people of Bucor.
Yan yung request nila. Yan yung pinapadagdag nila.
Mabuti.
Wala pa sa budget yan.
Wala pa.
Wala pa. Pinapadagdag nila yan.
Dagdagan pa natin.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh.
actually meron kaming kailangan pa rin by way of additional capital outlay. But I guess this is a priority for the security solution. We're also thinking about additional hospital equipment for the NBP hospital so that we may avoid this situation of PDLs requesting or asking permission to be brought to hospitals outside the penitentiary. So if you can just modernize the NBP hospital, then that kind of request being hospitalized outside would be minimized if not altogether removed.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Secretary.
Mr. Chairman.
Tapos na? Tapos na?
Punta
Go ahead.
Yung sa hospital, sir, maganda at napansin nyo yan. Dahil nga yung nandun ako, ang tawag ko dyan sa hospital natin sa Bucor is Mona Lisa Hospital. Mona Lisa Hospital. They just lie there and they die there. Maraming busy ko nakita doon na mga namamatay na lang doon, nakahiga. Talagang makawawa talaga. Yung lalong mga matatandang preso. Kaya sabi ko, Mona Lisa Hospital natin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Senator Tolentino, I think you
Mr.
want to
Chair,
add something.
relative to the last request of Secretary Guevara, during our last Committee on Health, Department of Health meeting, it was, they agreed, they confirmed, they validated that there are several equipment being unutilized by DOH. lying somewhere in their warehouses. Perhaps the good chairman can, and Secretary Guevara can request Secretary Duque. They have several mobile vans, dialysis machines, etc., that can be utilized by Bucor. Going back to LRA, Mr. Chair, I forgot the issue concerning the judicial forms in Visayas and Mindanao. Apparently, judicial forms, which are the special controlled papers used to print certificates of title, are not distributed in bunches that would approximate the requirement, the need. So what is happening right now, and the administrator can confirm this, developers incur delays in having their projects subdivided into saleable lots because because of the lack of allocated forms for the Register of Deeds. Delays take up to 18 months. Sir, 18 months. So ito yung nangutang yung bumibili ng bahay, naghanda na, tumaas na yung presyo ng materyales. 18 months is more than a year, Mr. Administrator. Ano po nangyari na kaya dito?
Actually, Your Honor, I already informed the developers that in the allocation of titles, we base it on the average transactions of the RDs. But insofar as the developers, I already informed them that they should directly transact with the committee because their transaction...
Committee refers to the central office?
Yes, Your Honor, the judicial forum committee that we created, Your Honor, that they would transact to them directly because their transactions are unpredictable insofar as the registries are concerned, Your Honor.
Probably is the reason why we have a real backlog of housing right now because no developer worth his salt would really proceed without titles. And the other issue is that when they require your RDs, your RDs would always require that they present certificates of finality or exemption order before they can register, assuming that you have the judicial forms. But your RDs are familiar that the Department of Agrarian Reform always doesn't issue with finality, and it would take another 6 months for your before the same is released. So 18 plus 6 is how much? 24 months, that's 2 years.
May ask my deputy to answer.
Let me delineate the two transactions, Your Honor. If we are talking about developers having subdivision transactions, while we in the past, I think from November up to February, there is a seeming delay in the delivery of judicial title forms in the respective RDs, precisely or mainly because of the issues or incident as a result of delay in the printing of the judicial title form, Your Honor. Our judicial title form is a sacred document that is being printed by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is in turn also procuring the paper form with all the requirements of 9184, bidding, support from foreign sources. That lies the problem, Your Honor, because sometime from November up to February, aside from the fact that the Bangko Sentral was not able to procure the paper form from the source, the foreign source, there was a regular rehabilitation of their machine, Your Honor. Yung kasing gumagawa ng machine ng aming judicial title form is a machine that is regulated by the Interpol. Masyadong security conscious yung BSP. At every now and then, I think every 2 years, there's got to be a routine rehabilitation of the machine. That's one factor, Your Honor. On the matter of DAR, I think you're referring to an exemption order, conversion order. Your Honor, our mandatory requirement is that there should be a finality. as just like a court
Wala
order.
nga finality lumalabas eh. Alam ng mga RDs nyo yun eh. It will take time. And then pag lumabas yung finality, give it another 6 months.
Your Honor, I think the DAR Paro or the DARAB, Your Honor, issues a finality order in cases of exemption or conversion.
Administrator, you agree that kaya mabagal ngayon dahil kulang tayo sa papel.
Well, that has already been resolved,
Addressed?
Your Honor. Yes,
So
that has been resolved. That has been resolved since May,
and
Your
then now
Honor.
the machine.
Opo.
Yung machine.
Opo, tapos na po yun. As a matter of fact, since from May until today, there has been a regular supply of judicial title form. Only that, yung mga backlog noong that time that we have been suffering for that backlog, yun ang naipon, Your Honor. Kaya hanggang ngayon,
So this
nagno-normalize
accounts for
pa kami.
468,436 pending requests. I understand. But one last point para kay Secretary Guevara. I was just asked by the Senate President to inform you that while the Senate now is trying to fine-tune the bill that's the output of the Bucor hearings that would necessitate the creation of 3 penal institutions, one in Nueva Ecija, one in Aklan, copies, and then another one I forgot. Perhaps the Senate Minority Floor Leader can fill the gap. The initial budgetary requirement probably would be sourced from existing. Any comment on that? Because if that's dito rin manggagaling, may pagkukunan pa ba sa inyo? Wala na. Bahala na si Senator Angara.
Well, if I may suggest, one of the proposals is to sell the Muntinlupa facility because that's a very valuable property now and use the proceeds for the building of these regional prison houses. That's one of the proposals as a source of budget because this is quite substantial, sir, and I'm afraid that you cannot accommodate it in the General Appropriations Act without a separate source of fund, and that is the privatization or the privatization of the Muntinlupa.
I
Facility.
agree, Senator Drill.
Well, I have a few more questions if
Are you done, Senator Francis? Okay, Senator Minority Leader Drilon.
I have a number of questions on the Public Attorney's Office. May I request Chief Public Attorney Acosta to sit here?
You're requested, Attorney Acosta, to sit here.
Good afternoon po, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. Attorney Acosta, I have a few questions on your agency. First, is it a correct statement that under the 1987 Administrative Code, as amended by Republic Act 9406, there are 6 line divisions in your agency, namely the Administrative Division, Financial Management Division, Special and Appealed Cases Division, Legal Research and Statistics, Field Services, and Executive Division. Is that a correct enumeration?
Yes, Your Honor, but in the implementing rules, the DBM issued.
Well, let's go into that later.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just talking about the 2 laws, the Administrative Code and Republic Act 9406. Is that a correct enumeration?
It's under Section 15, Your Honor.
Yes,
Section
there are
4.
6 divisions.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you are aware of the jurisprudence that says that a public office can only be created by law. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes, there should be an enabling law, Your Honor.
There should be an enabling law.
Yes, Your
In
Honor.
fact, the Administrative Code and Republic Act 9406 are the enabling laws.
Yes, Your Honor, but under GAA of 2019, there is a law created by Your Honor mandating the DBM regarding
You're-
Section 87, organizational structure and staffing pattern changes. I will
Okay.
read, Your Honor.
Yes.
Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary and within the limits of the appropriations authorized in this act, the President of the Philippines is authorized to create new offices and modify the existing organizational structure of the agencies in the executive branch, as well as create new positions or modify existing ones whenever public interest so requires. The DBM may approve minor changes in the organizational structure and staffing pattern of agencies and create positions up to division chief and equivalent level under the executive branch. It may likewise determine the organizational structure and provide positions in the organizational units and of agencies or offices created or reorganized pursuant to law. GAA for 2019 is a law, Your Honor. It is Republic Act 21. It's a Republic Act, Your Honor, General Appropriations Act. So pursuant to the general... Papa.
Okay, so you're saying that under the budget,
Yes, Your Honor.
under the General Appropriations Act, offices can be created by simply providing funds.
Creation of NOSCA, Your Honor.
Yeah, can you just answer me? Is that your proposition?
By virtue of the General Appropriations Act, which is a law, the DBM was empowered
Right.
to create positions, Your
So
Honor.
you're saying that you can create public offices simply on the basis of the General Appropriations Act because that is a law. Yes or no?
Your Honor, I do not create any position.
No, I mean you. I mean when I say you,
Klaro naman ho yung tanong, attorney.
You
Ano,
can create
Huwag
po.
mo
Can
Honor.
you-
I'm
is
not
it your-
referring to you, obviously.
is it your
Apo, Your Honor.
position, opinion nyo ho yun na yung GAA can create an office?
DBM po ang inauthorize ng batas, JA
The-
for 2019.
All right. The batas
Opo.
is the General Appropriations Act.
Opo.
You are aware, Attorney Acosta, that the General Appropriations Act is a yearly appropriation.
Yes, Your
Is-
Honor.
okay, you know, it's a
Yes,
yearly
Honor.
appropriation. So that by the end of the year, that appropriation lapses either because it is spent or it is unused, especially in a cash budget that we are now following. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. It
All
refers to budget, but the creation
let
of
me just
positions
please-
entail budget.
All right. Yeah, that's precisely, allow me to ask the question.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Opo,
please.
sir.
Okay.
Dati ko po kayong boss, sir. Opo.
Sige. That's why, what I'm saying is, can the DBM, through the GAA, create new offices? In effect, that's what you're saying, yes.
By virtue of Republic Act 11260, Your Honor, there's a NOSCA issued by the
No,
DBM.
Can you please answer my question?
Opo.
Ah,
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes or no?
Opo, kasi yung dagdag
Opo,
naming lawyer,
okay.
NOSCA
Now,
lang din po yun
Ang
eh.
tanong ko sa iyo, pag natapos ang General Appropriations Act, as you know, the General Appropriations Act is a yearly allocation.
Opo, sir.
If the appropriation is not repeated the following year, that office is deemed abolished.
If not funded, Your Honor,
Yes,
it
if
will
not
be
funded.
abolished, but the DBM
Alright.
continuously funds
What?
our
What?
positions, Your Honor, the positions created by them.
Who continuously funds it?
The DBM through the MPBF, it's not yet, if it has yet appropriated, Your Honor.
Just answer me. The power to appropriate is with Congress. You're saying that offices can be created by appropriation. So that this year, for example, so that you're saying that the DBM has created under that position or under the General Appropriations Act. It is accepted that the General Appropriations Act is a yearly appropriation. And if we do not renew we do not enact a new appropriations, or if we delete that allocation in the new appropriations, that office, since it was created only under the budget, will have to be abolished.
Precisely, if there's no budget, Your Honor. But does
No,
that
no, if
happen?
there is no more budget.
Hindi po nangyari sa akin
No, no, no,
labing na
talagang
taon.
theoretical lang.
Nag-create sila, tapos hindi po
Legal
nababudgetan.
proposition lang. Legal proposition.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. If since it is an annual appropriation act, that means if in the next appropriation there is no allocation of public funds for that particular position, which you said is validly created under the General Appropriations Act, there is no more office.
Kaya po ng COSLAP, hindi na po binadgetan, abolish.
Abolish gaya ng
Opo,
COSLA.
COSLAP po yan, pero may lo po yun.
Okay. COSLAP was even an office created under the law. There is an enabling law. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, because
And yet-
it is an agency.
Yet, when the budget was denied, it was abolished as an office.
What is COSLAP? Sorry.
COSLAP is the Commission on Settlements of Land.
Land registrations and problems, Your Honor.
yes.
And
COSLAP.
what is the NOSCA? Is that NOSCA? Ano
No,
yung sinabi?
NOSCA, Your Honor,
is
is
NOSCA?
notice of the DBM of organization
No, what is the
stopping
other office? Okay.
and
alright.
compensation
Okay.
action. May
Alright.
NOSCA pong binibigay.
It's okay,
attached
it's
to the
okay, ma'am.
letter
Very
of
simple,
I got it, yeah.
simple
It's all right.
question.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Simple question. If you are asserting that an office can be created simply by an appropriation in the General Appropriations Act, necessarily you will accept the proposition that that same office is abolished when there is no longer any appropriation.
That will not be funded, Your Honor. If
I'm sorry?
walang sweldo, if that will be not funded anymore.
So the office can be abolished.
Yes, Your Honor, it's being done by the government with respect to
Just
non-performing
please answer me.
offices.
Ikaw naman, tinatanong lang.
Oh, that's a yes, ma'am. Yes, yes po yung sagot niya.
Yes po, sir.
Okay, okay.
Ha?
Opo, sir.
Opo,
Kasi
opo.
nag-abolish lang po pag hindi
Alright,
nagpe-perform.
sige, alright. Now, I'll go to some specific issue. Your forensic laboratory
Yes, Your Honor.
and the 8 plantilla positions, is that created under the General Appropriations Act?
Yes, Your Honor, for 2019.
For 2019.
Republic Act 21.
It was created in 2019 under the General Appropriations Act.
Opo, Republic Act 11260.
Now, in fact, that was included in the budget in, if I'm not mistaken, January 14, 2019. Is that correct?
And it is, I think, what
Yeah.
I know, it will be charged to the MPBF, Your Honor.
Yeah, can you please answer me? When was it funded? January 14, 2019.
There is a notice of organization stopping compensation or action or NOSCA with specifics regarding the salary and the
That was
pera.
when? January.
data. Opo.
Alam mo, tatagal tayo rito. My questions are very simple. That was created on January 14, 2019.
Opo, sir.
Yan.
Ito po.
Sige. Now, on January 14, 2019, there was no General Appropriations Act.
The General Appropriations Act is for 2019. That is Republic Act 11,
No, my dear.
11260, Your Honor,
my-
for
my
the year
dear-
2019.
My dear Secretary, my dear Attorney Acosta, on January 14, 2019, when the forensics laboratory was created, there was no General Appropriations Act yet because of the delay in the signing. Is that correct?
Yes, but there is,
what?
but it is the law, Your Honor,
That is the, yeah.
applicable.
What is the law applicable?
Simple lang ho, simple lang ho.
Your Honor,
Na medyo ayoko rin tumagal masyado dito dahil gabi ho eh.
Even
hindi
prior po,
ma'am,
sir.
Ma'am,
Opo.
can you listen muna? The chair will interrupt already when the responses are not, when the answers are not responsive ho. Yung tanong ho, yung point ho ni Senator Drilon is, on January 14, 2019, hindi pa ho pasado yung national budget. I think that's something we can all take judicial notice or legislative notice of because it's a fact, no? We all know it was all in the newspaper. So, what is your next question, Senator Drilon? Yeah.
You cannot talk of any law at that point because the General Appropriations Act has not been passed. In fact, we were working on a reenacted budget under the Constitution.
Correct.
So-
You can proceed with your questioning. I think that's, we can
No, no.
establish that.
I understand now your point,
yeah.
sir. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, wala pa hong budget nun. Wala pa
Lahat
hong
po
budget.
nakakaintindi na, ikaw na lang ang hindi.
Hindi, sir, kasi ano,
Oh, sige.
sir,
Yes.
even prior to the General Appropriations Act for 2019, in the prior Republic Acts concerning the JA, the DBM has been authorized and the President to create positions. In fact, in some departments, priorly there are only 2 or 3 USECs or ASECs, but the President can create positions, Your Honor, even though in the EO 292 and in subsequent enabling laws, wala po silang bilang lamang ng USEC ASECs. Dito po sa amin, ang ginawa po ay isang dibisyon na under the office created by the Public Act 9406, the Office of the Chief Public Attorney, sir. Yun po yun.
The
Sa
office-
Paulo po, sir, sa Paulo po, meron po kaming creation of positions, complementary staff positions, nung po sa Republic Act 9406. Kaya po pati lawyers and staff, meron pong continuing creation.
Now,
Yung po kasama
was
po
there-
kayo
is there
doon. Salamat po
anything-
sa law namin, sir.
Is there anything in all the laws, either under the GAA or whatever law that you can cite, which authorizes the creation of a forensics laboratory division?
Your Honor,
Is there a substantive law? Can you answer yes or no?
no wordings as forensic laboratory division, but stopping pattern, Your Honor, has been stated as Section 7 of Republic Act 9406 or PAULO, and I will quote, Section 7, ratio of public attorney position to an organized sala. There shall be a corresponding number of public attorneys position at the ratio of 1 public attorney to an organized sala and the corresponding administrative and support staff thereof. The Forensic Laboratory Division is created by the DBM to be under the Office of the Chief Public Attorney is being utilized by the office in case build up, Your Honor, especially when the Secretary of Justice orders us to help victims of cases of national interest, like the case of Dembaxia, wherein Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre specifically ordered this representation to lead the filing of cases, whether criminal, administrative, or civil cases. And even prior to this, Your Honor.
Please. Abutan tayo dito ng curfew pag don't get excited. The issue is whether or not a forensic laboratory division is authorized under any law, not even the General Appropriations Act. I examined your laws and there is none that authorizes the creation of that. At most, you are talking about plantilla positions. Is that correct? In fact, your basic, your charter authorizes only 6 divisions.
Your Honor, later in the implementing rules was state changed into service because POW has been strengthened and widened, Your Honor. Unlike before, we have just divisions, but now the executive division has been converted through the IRR as service, Your Honor. And in the GAA 2018, for 2018, it is stated that Section 84, organizational structure and staffing pattern changes. Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, and within the limits of the appropriations authorized in this act, the President of the Philippines is authorized to create new offices and modify the existing organizational structure of the agencies in the executive branch, as well as create new positions or modify existing ones whenever public interest so
Excuse me.
requires. The
That is the
DBM,
power of the President.
ito po, the DBM may approve
Sige, tuloy mo.
The DBM may approve minor changes in the organizational
Minor
structures
changes.
and staffing pattern of the agencies and create positions up to a division chief and equivalent level under the executive branch. Ito po yung December 29.
In accordance with law.
Pa,
There's a portion there in the same sentence. Ituloy mo.
in cases when Congress creates or reorganize, sa Congress na po ito, pag sila
Correct.
nag-reorganize, The
Anyway,
DBM is
sige.
authorized to determine
Okay, anyway.
its organizational structure.
Yes.
Ito po yung GAA for 2018.
Okay, okay. I think the issues are joined, and I think we know the position of Attorney Acosta. We have certain legal precepts that are established in jurisprudence, among the most important of which is that a position, a public office, can only be created by law. And that law does not refer, or if you're going to say the law is the General Appropriations Act, fine. Because at the end of the day, if that is your theory, the moment we do not provide a budget for the under the General Appropriations Act for that office, then that office is abolished. Is that correct?
Po kayo,
Tama
sir.
ba?
May
Okay,
budget po, binigyan ng
Okay,
DBM.
okay. Now, isn't that, you know, that position of yours sets a very dangerous precedent. Why? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Do not shrug your shoulder. I'll tell you why. Senator Angara, Senator Tolentino, Senator De La Rosa, can insert provisions or can make amendments or what we call congressional insertions, alignments, and create an office which will now oblige the executive branch to fund that every year because that office will continue to exist. In fact, Attorney Acosta, if you ask the DBM, they will not allow congressional alignments to create an office because to do so would oblige the Department of Budget to fund that every year, and they're not prepared to do that.
In our case, Your Honor, there
Because
is
in
no
your
office
case-
created, but a plantilla position and named as a division under the office of the Chief PAO, Your Honor. The wordings of Secretary Ben Jokno is very clear, Your Honor. Ito po, sir. Chief Public Attorney Presida Acosta, quote and quote, Dear Chief Acosta, we are pleased to inform you of the creation of a forensic laboratory division in the PAO, which be lodged under the office of the Chief Public Attorney,
Yes.
to be primarily responsible for undertaking medical, legal, and forensic-related functions and activities of the agency. Hindi po officer yung forensic lab division.
Madam,
Ito po ay-
Madam Acosta,
Ang office po yung office ko po,
Yes.
sir.
the DBM is not the law. All right? The DBM can express an opinion, but he is not the law. Because the law, because the creation of an office through the budget is not something that is not acceptable in law, because you need a substantive law, not a General Appropriations Act. Anyway, let us leave the topic behind us now. How long has the forensics laboratory been in operation?
Sir?
How long have your forensics lab been in operation?
Formally, Your Honor, it's just a working room. In
Okay.
2004, wherein Secretary Bongkodin authorized the PAO to hire a forensic consultant in our medical...
Consultant.
Yes, Your
A
Honor.
consultant, not an employee.
No, he's not our
A
employee. sir.
consultant
Opo.
is sourced from the MOOE as a consultant, not as an employee. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, consultant po siya.
So it was not an authority to create a plantilla position or an office because that is under the MOOE.
Wala pong division na nakikreate nun, sir. From
Sige.
2004 to January 14, 2019, wala pong division na kinreate ang DBM. Ano lang po yun, meron lang kami
Kailan nila
room.
create yung division?
Nito lang pong pirmado po ni Kuya Ben, ni Secretary Ben Jokno, DBM Secretary.
They
Ito po,
created that division in
under the
January.
office of the Chief Public Attorney.
Yes, on January 2019.
Po.
And-
At may mga doktor na pong plantilla
well,
position.
all right, there is a difference of opinion between us. In our view, the DBM secretary is not God. He cannot create an office. Only the law can create an office, and that is in accordance with the decisions of the Supreme Court that a public office is either created by the Constitution or statute or by authority of law. And the law here is not the General Appropriations Act. It is a substantive law because, as you have accepted, if it is the General Appropriations Act, the position is clear that by the end of that year, we can have that position abolished by not allowing any appropriation.
Sir, hindi nga po office yung kinirate.
Ano yun?
Ang office po, existing na sa Paulo, Office of the Chief Public Attorney. Tapos doon lang po inattach yung 8 plantilla positions ng 4 na doktor, isang dentist, isang nurse,
sige.
isang medtech.
Anyway.
Sir,
Anyway,
yun
as I
pong
said-
word na office po kasi,
Alright.
sir eh.
Okay.
Pasensya
now,
na po, sir. Pero
talking
yung,
about the forensics laboratory, hindi po ba may forensic laboratory din ang NBI at saka PNP?
meron po. Pero may mga kaso po, gaya ni Secretary Aguirre, kami pong inutusan doon sa pagtulong doon sa pag-imbestiga sa mga patay, illnesses, and injured. Sa NBI po niya inassign yung pera, yung 3.5 billion worth of them back sa procurement. Kaya sila po yung nag-file sa ombudsman.
Oo.
Ito po yung order sa NBI.
Oo.
Ito naman po yung order sa PAO. Dalawa po ito, twin decision. Sinati po niya.
Oo, pakisagot lang po, hindi ba yung NBI may sarili ding forensics laboratory?
Opo, araw-araw po, yun po ang day-to-day
Teka,
nila.
Oo lang o hindi?
Opo,
Meron po
pero
ba?
madalas po
Mayroon.
prosecution
Why
po ang
could you
gumagamit
not-
sa kanila.
Why could you not have availed of the forensic laboratory of the NBI or the PNP?
In the Dembaksa cases, sir.
In all cases.
Sir, nung araw kahit sa Sulpicio po sa MB Princess, nagkausap
Ano?
tayo. Yung mga lumubog na barko
Just
po.
answer my question. Why could you not have availed of the forensics laboratory of the NBI and the PNP?
Sir, there's a special order to this representation by the Secretary of Justice.
That?
The Secretary of Justice, knowing that we have a forensic consultant, Your Honor.
Yes.
Inutusan po kami ni Secretary Aguirre on December 12,
To
2017.
provide legal services.
Yes, but forensic services is necessarily included, especially in the cases of the victims in the case build-up. We cannot file a
Yes.
case like this, Your Honor, without forensic autopsy result, Your Honor.
Okay. And the forensic autopsy could have been done by the NBI or the PNP.
Pwede po sila, dahil may mga
Pwede.
cases pong tie-up kami. Marami po kaming kaso na
marami. So,
nagtatie. Hindi po, sa case pong ito, ay doon na sa amin na po inassign ni Secretary Aguirre dahil ang NBI po, araw-araw ang mga medical legal officer nag-o-autopsy po, kanya-kanya sila ng duty.
So wala na silang panahon para sa inyo.
Ay, hindi naman sa ganun. Meron po kaming forensic doctors, tsaka volunteers, sir.
Kaya nga, you had to put up your own forensic laboratory and not avail of NBI or PNP because of for your own reasons.
No, not for my own reason. Because of the order of the Secretary of Justice, sir.
The
I
Secretary
cannot
of
bypass
Justice,
all
the Secretary of Justice Attorney Acosta required you to provide legal services, and the legal services could have been performed without creating a forensics laboratory.
Sir?
No.
Sir-
The directive
May
to
ex-
you is to provide legal services. The legal services could have been rendered, and that is no justification for the creation of a forensic laboratory, because forensic work is done efficiently by the NBI and by the Philippine National Police.
Since 2004, Your Honor, Secretary Bongko din authorized us to utilize our forensic consultant. And si Dr. RP po, siya po ang 2004, 15 years ago pa.
So he
And
is a
Secretary of
consultant.
Justice Vitaliano Aguirre is well-versed and he knows na meron po kaming forensic services dahil may Victims Assistance Unit po kami in consonance with Republic Act 9745 or the Anti-Torture Act na doon po, mandatorily, Section 9 and 11, PAO po ay binigyan ng kapangyarihang mag-imbestiga, side by side, pwede rin ang CHR, NBI, DOJ, PNP, AFP, binigyan po kami ng kapangyarihang mag-imbestiga noong Republic Act 9745 or the Anti-Torture Act. Kaya po ito po yung naging pagbabago sa PAO, 2010, after 2009 Republic Act na Anti-Torture Act, Si Secretary Di Banadera po, ang siya nagpunta sa amin para i-enhance po yung forensic laboratory room po namin. Room lang po yun.
So, room, hindi laboratory.
Yung laboratory,
Room lang.
nandun po sa room. Pero ang tao lang po doon, yung pumupunta-punta yung forensic consultant po. Ngayon lang po kami nagkaroon ng plantilla nitong January
Correct.
2019.
And the plantilla, in my view, is not authorized because the office or the forensics laboratory division is not authorized by by your own charter, and you cannot create a public office through the General Appropriations Act. But if that is your theory, well and good, because then the power to abolish on the part of Congress can be exercised by withholding the appropriation to that office.
Ay, tama
Is
po.
that- yeah,
Tama
po
po
yan.
kayo, sir.
Oh,
Pero,
okay.
pero
Tama na, okay.
ang punto doon ay nandyan na ho yan. Inauthorize po ng DBM. The President through the DBM. Igagalang ko po ang desisyon ng Pangulo at ng DBM.
Opo, pero ang Kongreso po ang may kapangyarihan to appropriate, hindi po yung Pangulo. Yun po sa ating sistema.
Tama rin po kayo, sir.
So, kaya nga. So, that is a legal principle that you must accept. Now, you said, okay, how was the equipment in the forensic laboratory acquired? Did you have a capital outlay?
Noong pong 2010.
Noong
2010 po. Year
2010,
2010, opo.
you had a capital
Akin na
outlay.
yun. Opo.
How much, and was this supplemented afterwards?
Akin na yung sa 2010. 2010. Sa GAAPOR 2010 po, meron po kaming capital outlay. I'm very sure of that, Your Honor.
Capital outlay for a forensic laboratory?
Not specifically because our funds are, say, common fund, Your Honor.
Of course, but when you submit a capital outlay budget to the DBM, ini-specify po doon kung ano yung capital outlay. Building ba?
That's
Auto
for
ba?
equipments, Your Honor.
Ha?
Equipments, for equipments.
Equipment, what was it equipment, a transportation equipment or a car is an equipment? Was there a specific allocation for a forensic laboratory in 2010 as a capital outlay?
Sandali lang po, sir.
Sige,
Balik tayo ng 9 years, sir. Ito po,
Okay.
may papel po dito.
Oo.
Maybe we can proceed with the next questions
Yes.
while
Sige po.
while the staff of
We're
Chief
looking for the
Acosta
2010 GAA, sir.
are looking for the 2010 GA.
And while you are looking at that, you might as well submit to
Yes,
the
sir.
committee
Opo, sir.
every year saan yung kinukuha yung pondo para sa inyong forensic laboratory since 1910. Okay?
2010, sir?
2010, I'm sorry. Since
As-
2010.
sir-
Just submit it
Opo, sir.
as ordered by the
Apa.
chairman para
Apa,
hindi tayo
para
tumagal.
mabilis.
I-submit mo na lang in writing. Kasi ang problema dito, you want to be the NBI by putting up your own forensic laboratory. Doktor ka na nga, pulis ka pa.
Hindi po kami nagpupulis, sir. Hindi kami nang-aaresto, sir.
Okay, sige.
Hindi rin po kami nagpapile sa court ng kaso, prosecutors po.
Okay, sige. Well, may I ask this from Secretary Guevara? Have you directed PAO to continue providing legal services, legal assistance and services to the Dingbaksha victims? Huh?
Senator, they have been doing that even without
To the
instructions
so-called
from me.
Dingbaksha victims?
They have been doing so without any continuing instruction from me. They have begun it and continue to do it.
They have begun it and continue to do it without asking you whether they should continue. They just assume that they have the power.
They just continue. I don't know
Yes, yes.
what they assume.
Yeah, all right. Now, so since you have your own forensic laboratory, the possibility of a conclusion from your forensic laboratory completely opposite or in conflict with that of the NBI or the PNP is possible. Yes.
Sir, during the hearing here, on the case of Kian,
Yes.
yes, sir,
Yes.
there was a conflict because the forensic doctors and its volunteers found out that there was 3 gunshot wounds.
Okay.
Gunshot wounds.
Yes.
But the NBI says, and they said only 2 at the head, at the whole of the ear and at the back. But the forensic doctors and even the then Vice President Binay was able to see
Okay.
the wound at the back of Kian.
Whose forensic examination was that? The PNP?
Yung dalawa lang, sir, PMP po.
PNP. I'm asking about the NBI. Could you have referred Kian to the Kian de los Santos for autopsy to the NBI?
At that time, sir, we were asked by the parents to help them and to ask our volunteers, doctors, to conduct the autopsy.
Why?
They know publicly, Your
Can
Honor.
that have been done by the NBI? What I'm just pointing out to you is that your forensics laboratory is a duplication of the work of the NBI, a duplication of the work of the PNP, and your forensics laboratory has been created not by virtue of any law, but by virtue of the General Appropriations Act.
Sir, as a system of check and balance, sir, when the parents was very disappointed because they know that Kian has a wound at his back, and yet at the death certificate, only 2 gunshot wounds at the head was indicated. They asked ABS-CBN reporters to ask us to send our forensic doctors and our volunteers to conduct a re-autopsy, Your Honor. There is no conflict because when the doctors of power were there, the NBI was sent by the NBI director to conduct crime scene reconstruction. So while the forensic doctors of PAO was doing the autopsy, yung mga NBI agents po nagka-crime scene
Pero
reconstruction.
pwede rin gawin ng NBI ang autopsy.
Pwede po, pero on the request
Pwede.
po yung forensic ng PAO, hindi po
Regardless
sila.
of the request of any private party, we as public officials know that we have public offices who are performing these functions, investigative functions, which is principally the NBI, and in the Department of Justice, because I am not sure that your mandates include investigative work.
Well,
Is there you investigate like the police and the NBI?
in cases of torture, we are mandated, Your Honor,
Okay.
to investigate. It is
Torture.
explicit under Republic Act 9745, word per word, Your Honor.
Oh, wait.
It is stated, Your Honor, that PAO is
Wait.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Can we'll take a 2-minute break in the committee. I think it's called for by the we need a cooling down period, and we'll allow it's a health break to allow the secretary.
This witness,
yeah.
we're asking questions. Kung ano-ano mga saan tayo dinadala.
We'll ask the chief to keep her answer short, please, and responsive para matapos tayo ng maaga.
Okay, sige.
Yeah.
I'll just,
Let's suspend the hearing for 2 minutes and then let's start again. Thank you.
Can we resume, Mr. Chairman? Yes.
I think he just went to the CR,
Okay.
Senator Frank.
Yes, Mr. Chair, may we resume?
We call the meeting to order again. May we request Chief Acosta to wait until the senator asking the question is finished, and then she can respond. Yeah, thank you.
I-
Submit it to the
I
discretion of the
apologize,
chair.
Attorney
Thank you, sir.
Acosta, for having raised my voice. I was just a little agitated that I am talking and I'm the one asking the question, and sinasabayan mo ng salita, hindi ko natuloy maintindihan kung ano yung tinatanong ko. Pasensya na po kayo at medyo tinaasan ko kayo ng boses, but there is no intention to insult you or anything. It was just out of exasperation. But anyway, having already said that, what concerns this representation is that with two government agencies mandated to do investigative work, having crime laboratories, including autopsies, authorized by law, could be confronted with a situation where another government agency, also funded by law, will present a different finding. Remember, both of these are government agencies, and you are also a government agency. But your mandate is to provide legal services, which you have expanded to include a laboratory, forensic laboratory. Can you justify your existence on the basis of what clearly in my mind is a duplication?
Your Honor, the Anti-Torture Act of 2009, entitled An Act Penalizing Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment and Prescribing Penalties therefore, this is Republic Act 9745, states, Section 9, Institutional Protection of Torture Victims and Other Persons Involved. A victim of torture shall have the following rights in the institution of a criminal complaint for torture. A, to have a prompt and an impartial investigation by the CHR and by the agencies of the government concerned, such as the Department of Justice, the Public Attorney's Office, PAO, the PNP, the National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, and the AFP. A prompt investigation shall mean a maximum period of 60 working days from the time a complaint for torture is filed, within which an investigation report and or resolutions are be completed and made available. Nandito po yun, at ito po ang naging dahilan kung bakit si Secretary Agnes de Banadera noong January 2010, siya po mismo nag-inaugurate nung room namin na kung saan na po magtatrabaho yung forensic consultant at ang mga volunteer external expert po na hindi naman natin binabayaran. Mga volunteer po from UP. So yung PAO po, kasi yung sinampa po naming kaso kay Kian, kay Carl Arnaiz at kay Kulot, may torture case po kaming sinampa doon. Nasampa po yung kay Arnaiz at kay Kulot. Dito po sa Dembaxia, may pinal din po kaming torture case sa National Prosecution Service sa DOJ. Under preliminary investigation pa po yung 45 separate criminal cases na sampahan po up to the level of Secretary of Health. Gandun lang po kasi doktor po yung Secretary of Health. Ito po yung loser na nagpapatotoo na may investigative power po ang PAO. Pasensya po sir, alam mo sir, marami na akong trabaho. Nung PAO lawyer po ako nun sir, kayo po ang boss kong Secretary of Justice at talagang kayo po ay suportado namin, talaga ng buong PAO. So ang punto doon, marami na po kaming trabaho. Kung pwede nga lamang, kung gusto nyo pong tanggalin sa amin ito, i-repeal ito, malaya po kayo ang Kongreso para mabawasan na po yung 13 million client namin as of December 31, 2018.
Sige.
Napakarami na po sir, kanina nag-turn over pa kami ng skeletal remains nung asawa na hindi nakilala dahil yung suportolero, pinagsama-sama yung mga bangkay.
Pwede ba ako
Opo,
magtanong?
kayo naman sir, sinagot ko lang po yung
Ako
tanong.
naman. Is the NBI, in your view, capable of an impartial investigation?
Sir, lahat po dito sa law. Pwede po. Nandito po sa law yun eh.
Does
Opo.
the law on torture exclude the NBI from conducting the investigation? No. No.
The PAO is included po.
All right, POW is included, but it does not exclude the NBI from doing what is their mandate, that is investigate crimes. Is that
Your
correct?
Honor, si Kulot nga po sila ang nag-autopsy. Si
Correct.
Carnais kami po. Pero
Okay,
sa isang
okay.
case po yun.
That's I'm just trying to prove the point that your forensic laboratory is actually a duplication of what the NBI and the PNP are doing. That's all. You may agree or disagree with that, but that's the view that I believe is a reasonable view. Yes. The media accounts and the Department of Health has stated publicly that there was a very perceptible and clear loss of confidence in the vaccination process? In the vaccine program of the Department of Health. Do you recall those statements? Just the statement. Whether or not it's true is another matter. But those statements were made.
Yes, sir. They're saying that.
They're saying that.
Yes, they're
Now,
saying that, Your Honor.
They're saying that. There were, in fact, 271,480 cases of dengue as of 31 August 2019, which resulted in 1,107 deaths.
Yan po sinasabi nila.
I'm sorry?
Yan po sinasabi ng DOE, ni
Okay,
Secretary
yeah.
Duque.
Yeah, and that's what he said. And he attributes this to the loss of confidence in the vaccination process or program of the Department of Health. That's what he says. Now, likewise, there were 477 deaths out of 34,950 cases of measles, as a result of the lack of the loss of confidence in the immunization process of the Department of Health. Do you recall that?
Yan din po sinasabi ni Secretary
Yan.
Duque.
And in fact, recently, for the first time, polio is back in the country again because of the loss of confidence in the process of immunization.
Sir, polio na sinasabi sa Lanao, 3 years old, na mag-presscon po ang Sanofi na hindi pwede sa seronegatives ang Dembaxia, November 29, 2017. Ang PAO nag-start lang po na magkaso February 2018. Dapat po yung batang yan, nabakunahan niya, na polio yan, oral polio, nung 2-month-old pa siya. That is early 2016. Wala pa pong pagkilos ang DOJ para utusan po ang NBI at PAO. Dahil, kaya po nag-Senate Blue Ribbon hearing kayo dito, ni Senator Gordon, but ano na yun, first week of December 2017. Kaya po walang kaugnayan po yung outbreak na yan
I'm
dyan.
sorry.
Pati
Okay.
po yung 5 taon, sir, dapat 2015 po yun na polio. Wala pa po sa eksena ang DOJ at NBI at PAO sa Dembaxia.
So it's only on measles and in dengue where, according to the Secretary of Health, there was this was the result of the low vaccination or the failure to immunize a great percentage of those who were supposed to be immunized. That's according to the Department of Health.
Sir, ito po yung COA report for 2017. Under distribution po noong pang 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017 ang mga bakuna. 12 po ito. Kasama po ang measles, polio. Yung pong polio, negative 92% ang distribution nila.
Oo.
Yung pong measles, sir, negative 91%.
So nagsisinungaling po ang Department of Health.
Hindi ko po alam saan la kinukuha yung sinasabi ni Secretary Duque dahil ang liwanag po ng COA report, sir.
Sige, okay.
Ito po under distribution, napaka-unfair, kada may magkakasakit, ako po sinisisi nila. Hindi naman po ako ang
Hindi
nag-Senate Blue Ribbon nung kayo po yun, yung December 2017. Yung Senate Blue Ribbon.
Ano ang ginawa
Ano
po?
sinasabi niyo si Senator Gordon na may kasalanan?
Hindi yun naman. Wala po akong at saka ang tagal ko na hong di nagsasalita sa mga bakuna. Ang tagal na ho hanggang Dembaxia, dead victim, 53rd lang kinover ng media. Nung hanggang 146 na po, mamaya. Kanina, meron na naman po pumunta sa office, namatay na naman yung anak nila. Nagka-severe dengue, kahit 3 shots of Dembaxia. Ayun, pinapahukay po yung kanilang anak. So anong gagawin ko, sir? Tatanggihan ko, may department order po sa akin. Sumusunod
Hindi mo
lang.
tatanggihan, i-refer mo sa NBI.
Sir,
That's what I'm saying.
i-refer ko po, naka 146 na po yung PAW doctors natin ng na-autopsy sa Dembaxia. 146 na, sir.
Kaya nga, yun ang
Invite ko rin po
sinasabi.
kayo, sir, na umattend sa autopsy para
Anyway,
makita nyo, sir.
Sige, I think we have discussed that point long enough.
Dati ko po kayong boss, sir, kaya ginagalang ko po kayo. Naniniwala po ako sa inyo.
Tama, salamat. At nandito tayo upang alagaan ang pera ng bayan at aking nakikita na itong pera ng bayan ay nalulustay sa isang activity na pwede namang gampanan ng NBI at saka ng PNP. That is my view. You may disagree with that, but let's leave it at that. Have you also filed civil cases against those who you believe are responsible for the Dembaxia fiasco?
Meron pong corresponding independent civil actions. Yung 45 cases na pinail po namin ng PAW dahil gusto po ng mga magulang, independent civil actions, ito po.
Okay.
39 na po yung 6 ginagawa pa po na special panel of PAW lawyers.
Alright.
Opo. Hindi po kasama si Pinoy dito. Hanggang Secretary of Health lang, sir.
Okay. Hindi ko naman sinasabi, isama mo kung gusto, kung mayroon kang ebidensya.
Nasabi ko lang po, sir, dahil
Ako rin, sige.
naging
Ngayon,
Pangulo po natin
huwag mo haluan
Ako-
ng politika.
Hindi po wala akong politika kasi sinasabi.
Oo nga yan. Mayroon bang filing fees ito?
Kasi po mahihirap po lahat. Yung pong maybe po sila, kinwalify po namin. Nasa Paulo po, sir. Exempted sa docket fees.
Ang tanong,
Wala po,
Chief, is
wala.
meron bang filing fees?
Wala po dahil nasa loob po
Okay.
natin.
Sige, so sabihin mo lang na walang filing fees, period. Para gusto ko lang malaman.
So walang required filing fees ho sa korte?
Kasi nasa Paulo po, the PAW clients or indigents are exempted from filing fees and other court expenses.
Pasensya ka natin, hindi namin alam yung ganong klaseng
Hindi.
provision. So, mabuti linawalagan natin na
Opo, sir.
walang filing fees.
Opo, sir.
Sige. Okay. So anyway, I think the issues are joined. It is my view, Mr. Chairman, that the forensics laboratory is a clear duplication of the functions of the NBI and the police, who have not been shown to be inefficient and incompetent, and therefore should and are the primary investigative arm of the government. The fact that there is a forensic laboratory exposes us to situations where there could be conflicting findings from two government offices. And therefore, Mr. Chair, at the appropriate time, I will move that the forensics laboratory of the PAW office not be funded and the same be transferred to the NBI, which is also an agency of the Department of Justice, so that they can perform the services that the office of the chief public attorney is saying in effect they cannot perform. So that is my submission, Mr. Chair, and I think at this point I can terminate my questions.
Thank you. Minority Leader Drilon. Matanong lang kay Chief Acosta, magkano naman nagastos nyo dyan sa forensic lab ninyo?
Ay, yung mga tao wala naman no additional expense kasi plantilla
They are
lang.
plantilla.
Opo,
oo.
yung
Pero
presyo
yung,
po sa
you
staff.
said you have equipment, tama ba?
Meron
mga-
po nung 2010 po.
Magkano hong nagastos doon?
Isasabit ko po sa inyo, hindi ko
so
po
wala
dala,
kayo yung
sir.
figures.
Opo.
oo. But after 2010, wala na kayong binili ho?
Wala po, pero ngayon po may pondo po ang DBM for 2020. Kasi nga po, meron po mas...
Dito sa tinitingnan
Opo,
nating
kasi may
budget.
sitwasyon po, pag yung prosecution po ay hiwalay sa amin at kami sa accused, kailangan din po ng equal voice between the defense and the prosecution. Pag sa accused po kami, definitely we cannot top the NBI pag sa depensa kami. Dahil ang NBI po sa kanila, sa prosecution. Halimbawa po, may defense po kami ang accused na hindi siya ang gumawa ng krimen and forensically we can prove it, hindi po namin magagamit ang NBI. Yun po ang sitwasyon, kaya sinikap ng pamahalaan kahit sa panahon pa ni Pangulong Pinoy na palakasin po ang forensic namin.
Just on that point, you have maintenance and operating expenses, is that correct?
Opo, sir.
And you could use that to do autopsy work if such autopsy work is needed by your client, so that it is a defense of your client, which is the accused, and not a government finding which will conflict with that of the other of the investigative with the findings of another government agency. Isn't that the more appropriate procedure?
Meaning, Your Honor, to hire a private
Yes,
firm
because they
to...
have MOE.
Sir, it's a matter of trust and confidence and control and supervision of the Chief Public Attorney, who is empowered by our law, Republic Act 9406, that the authority is vested, the responsibility in the exercise of the mandate of POW shall be vested upon the Chief Public Attorney. So
Ma'am.
yun po sir, ang hirap po pag mag-hire ng private, baka po hindi lalong magtiwala ang tao. In case of conflict between NBI and POW Forensics, ang court po naman ang magdi-decide. Hindi
Ma'am.
po ang Chief POW.
The findings of a crime laboratory, including an autopsy, is supposed to be impartial. Hindi po pwede yung partisan dyan. That is why having your autopsy performed by a professional, and this is done everywhere. You engage the services of a professional autopsy personnel to do the autopsy, just like handwriting experts. You hire, because the NBI or the PNP would have their own handwriting expert. As a defense, you secure, you hire also your own experts. And the same with autopsy. Hindi po, this is rocket science. My position is your agency's forensics laboratory is not only unauthorized creation, but also is fraught with dangers. And anyway, I think we have discussed this enough, Mr. Chair, and we have stated our position.
Thank you. Magkano ang nakabudget dun sa forensic lab ninyo for 2020?
Meron po kaming 19.5.
That's in the form of...
Yung pong tool marks, comparison microscope, alternative light source
So
imaging
it's
tool.
part capital outlay and part MOE.
Opo, portable x-ray. Kasi po,
Okay.
gaya nung naghuhukay po kami ng patay sa mga field, kailangan pong i-x-ray para hindi na iuwi sa lab yung mga bangkay. Yung kailangan ilibing na dahil decomposed na. Yun po yun, sir.
Sige, could you just submit the details to us, Chief?
Opo,
please?
sir, nasa
Opo.
NEP po ito. Sasubmit po namin yung
Okay,
breakdown.
thank you. At saka yung justification, why is there, ba't
Po,
nyo hiningi yun?
Meron po, sir.
Thank you, para at least we can, it will
Opo.
help us make a good decision.
Opo, sir.
So, if there are no other questions from the minority leader, then I think we can suspend the hearing, and we thank Secretary Maynard for presenting to us, and his deputies. Welcome, Yusek Villar, my former colleague in Congress. Salamat po. Salamat sa DOJ family. Thank you very much. Good night. Good night po. Clarify, we will submit the budget of the DOJ to plenary. We are suspending the meeting, the hearing of the Committee on Finance.